in the 80s, and I worked on the Cocaine Wars, two very controversial magazine articles that made a big difference in Miami. And if that isn't enough, tell me what you need. I've been honored by the...
Do you know Billy Cohen?
Huh? I've been honored by the Overseas Press Club.
Do you know Billy Cohen?
Billy
Cohen.
From where?
The guy that claims he did the Cocaine Cowboy series.
Oh, I didn't do video. I did stills, but I was on the Blue Lightning, Don Arono's boat, on the cruising the waters and catching dope dealers for months.
What did you land in Panama with Noriega?
I went in before. I got into Panama basically 3 weeks before the indictment. I went to see him. I got through.
Do you say the indictment when we invaded, or
no? The indictment when Dick Gregory actually unleashed the indictment from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I didn't see you at the airport when I landed in the first plane. But
well, I'll tell you that I was there before, and I photographed Noriega drunk in a bar 3 weeks before the indictment, and Noriega came to me basically, or they had me taken in. Eventually, they arrested me, threw me in jail, took my gear. But he gave me full access and then took my gear.
Did Vicky know he was drunk or not?
I beg your pardon?
Vicky, did she know he was drunk at the time?
I don't know. So, I'm just innocent on all charges.
So from your question, he says that he's a photographer.
And tell me about your investigative skills about looking at photographs and trying to figure out when they were taken, and what experience you have had that allows you to do that.
I was also a WCIX investigative producer working with Susan Candiotti. We got 4 Emmys together in 1 year, doing all kinds of investigations, especially after Andrew. I was also the Andrew pool producer.
Help us answer that question.
Okay. The photographs that I'm going to ask you to show will relate to figuring out the date that the range of date that the photograph was taken. And what basis do you have for being able to do that?
Well, I took a lot of the photos that have very little information on them. They are.
Excuse me, you didn't take the photos. Those photos were taken by the city or provided by the city. You basically physically took those photos. You didn't take those photos.
No, I took hold of the photos.
No, what we want to understand is this. What about your skill as a photographer, or your experience, your schooling, your credentials? What about that experience allows you to be able to take a document, a photograph that has no date on it, and determine when it was taken? That's particularly the level of expertise that we need to know.
I tried to keep it really simple, and I would like to distribute these to you guys for the record, so that you could see for yourselves. It doesn't take a lot of effort. At this point, I looked at them all very carefully for any sign that could allow me to pick a date and try to date these pictures, because a lot of the homes that claim to be tax card photos of when the houses were built have old growth coming from underneath the houses, and I don't think it's a common practice to build a house over a tree.
So, Mr. Stedman, I'm not hearing any expertise that allows him to be able to do that, but he's a fine witness that can tell us about the elements of the photo that we should point out. If you like him to do that,
correct. And so we can put it in for weight.
Mr. Chair, right? If he's established to your satisfaction as an expert for photographer, you can decide what weight to give his ability to date photographs.
Right. No, as a witness as well. So.
Yes. I defer to the attorney's opinion and ask if it'd be all right to submit into evidence for the record the J.B. Diederich handout.
Yes.
There's 10 copies.
He is your expert, right?
Pardon?
So he's your expert?
Yes.
Is the city providing an expert?
No. I can't. The expert that the city had that gave is Warren Adams, historic preservation planner, but I don't think the city has a photographer, to my knowledge.
Just making sure you weren't going to hire Charlie Crespo.
I have no hiring authority, so